Probably one of the highlights of my year was actually stumbling upon the Occupy Richmond site down at Kanawha Plaza, downtown Richmond. The site was very intriguing. There were lots of tents out there, lots of signs, lots of activity. There was lots of life out there. You had homeless people living beside people that were students, people that were professionals, people who lived in the community. And it was all of them were kind of living together, and I thought that was very unique. Something I hadn't really seen before. And the site that they had out there, they had it for 2 weeks. People were occupying that Kanawha Plaza site. When I went there, just walking through, I was talking to guys, some guys that homeless in the area, and they had some dominoes. So we decided to play dominoes. The humility of those people out there was unbelievable. They were offering me food, offering me clothing, just offering me anything that they had. They didn't have much, but whatever they had, they offered. One guy told me a story about, a time where, he was staying in a hotel, was homeless, and there was a young lady there, and she had some kids, and the kid was crying because the kid was really hungry, and he had $20, and he gave his last $20 to the mom, and she said, what are you going to do? What are you going to eat? He said, I'll eat grub worms if I have to. He said, because I'm a survivor. He said it hurt him to see that kid, being hungry and not, having the food it needed, and, for that's just that compassion, for us, for me, it's been a tough year for me, but, just to see for them, not having a home, very little supplies, but they're still positive people, still good people, still generous people. It really just really opened me up to a lot of different things. Like I said, I played, dominoes with them, really enjoyed myself. Really got a different perspective, got to know them. It was really, very enlightening to me to have that experience.
Breaking news, they've been camped out across the country, including right here in Richmond.
But the Occupy Wall Street protest right here in Richmond came to a grinding halt overnight around 1 o'clock this morning as police broke up the site at Kanawha Plaza. Our Shelby Brown is live there now with the very latest. Shelby.
Good morning, Reba and Rob. Well, it was a wake-up call. These occupiers didn't expect. Many of them were in their tents sleeping here in Kanawha Plaza. This happened a little more than 4 hours ago, and let me just show you what's happening now. The activity has really dwindled, but you can still see a police car here blocking off Canal right here at 9th and Canal. You can see this one lone protester still standing on the street holding his sign, and just behind him over in the park, they've turned out the lights now, but crews were there cleaning up. They had bulldozers removing the tents and the debris and all of the signage and everything. Police wasted no time going into the park to kick the group out. Now, dozens of people have been camping out in Kanawha Plaza for about 2.5 weeks. Well, of course, that came to an end at 1 o'clock this morning when police on horseback and police in cars rolled up, about 50 of them. They moved in on about 30 sleeping protesters. They used bullhorns to announce their arrival and to tell the crowd which law was being violated. The group got about 45 minutes or so to pack up their tents and their belongings and get out. Some of the occupiers complied and gathered their things. Others who did not move were arrested by police, and that was about a handful of protesters. Again, crews were in there with the bulldozers shortly after that, and cleanup crews putting all of the trash.
It was interesting that they did get evicted, although they had porta potties. They were saying that the trash picker was regular, so they were somewhat permitted to stay there. And Mayor Jones even seemed like he sympathized with them, but he ended up eventually evicting them. And then what they did was that they had. It was a gentleman that worked for one of the local papers, Raymond Boone, and he had given them permission to stay on his property. And this property is right next door to Mayor Jones's property. So they occupied Richard Boone's property, and within view of Mayor Jones, it kind of just let them know that it's not that easy. We're not going anywhere. So that was a commendable move. I thought one of the first programs I went to for the Occupy movement was the Why Occupy program that they had, and it was basically just an informal program that kind of just gave the students, the community, an idea what the Occupy movement was, what was some of the work they were doing, and they had several speakers there. One of the speakers that stood up was actually an Occupy movement member. He's an African American man. He had actually got locked up that night. Not the night, he had got locked up during the raid, and he was released. And he stood up and he didn't focus on a financial crisis. He didn't focus on, politicians' lobbies. He didn't focus on, economic and, environmental problems. He talked about humanity. He talked about compassion and love. And those two values, I never really, when I think about Occupy Wall Street, those are two things that I don't really think about, but it's two things that I definitely seen while I was out, at the site. And I felt like those are like precursors to solving any problems that we are going to solve, is that we have to have those two qualities, those two values present, because those are two things that we definitely need in order to make any type of strides as people and as a country. There was also another lady there who stood up and spoke, and she had quoted, this is something I'll never forget. She says that master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And she said it again, and it really stuck with me, because when you think of the Occupy movement, you typically think of white middle class college kids that are looking for jobs, and they're trying to, I guess, fight the government, fight for economic opportunities that black people have been fighting for 400 years, and it's kind of like they're just experiencing it, and it's a time where they're it's just kind of encouraging them to advocate and to stand up to that injustice. Occupying while black, the lack of it was visible at the meeting and at a general assembly that I went to. I didn't mind that because I was just there to learn more and learn what I can from the movement to use and apply within my own realm, within my own community. So I was with a gentleman, Brother Manifest. He's the founder of Happy Natural Day. And me and him were just dialoguing, just having conversations about the lack of black and Latinos there from the city of Richmond. A lot of the students were college students, some transient, some probably wouldn't come back. Some were graduating, some were at different colleges in the city. We were thinking about what's going to happen when summer comes and most of the students go back home. What's going to happen during spring break, or what's going to happen after graduation. And I'm starting to see some students take less of an active role in the Occupy movement once graduation hits and they're graduating or whatever it may be. You start to see the commitment kind of waning first from certain people. So we just wondering what was the commitment to the community, because the blacks and Latinos in Richmond, Virginia are the ones that are suffering, are being hit the hardest by the economic times. They are the most disadvantaged. They are the ones that are having high incarceration rates, high poverty rates, dropping out of high school. It's pretty much dealing with all of the problems that this movement is addressing. So we felt like they needed to be brought to the table. They needed to have a voice, and they needed to be represented by themselves. Another thing that the Occupy movement in Richmond has been doing is going to General Assembly meetings. This has been a very interesting fall. There have been several bills that have been either signed into law or sitting on the table dealing with women's rights. Particular ones are the HPV bill, the vaginal ultrasound bill before abortions, and also the HB 836 bill, which I covered for one of my papers for class, and that was the anti-shackling bill. It was a bill that Patrick Hope had introduced, and the bill would basically prohibit the shackling of pregnant women, that are delivering babies, those that are transported to medical facilities, and those experiencing postpartum depression, unless they are found to be a flight risk or a danger to themselves. The bill ended up not getting enough votes. One person, which was a Republican, Delegate Klein, had voted against the bill, so it didn't pass. But there were the love, and they had the room for. There were lots of people that came and supported the bill. Lots of women groups, lots of individuals that stood up and spoke on behalf of the bill to support it. Delegate Hope, and they just stood up and just said, "This is a barbaric act, of shackling women They couldn't believe this was occurring here in 2012 in the United States, and I couldn't believe it either. Just the health risk. There was a mother of one of the inmates who actually delivered her baby at the jail in shackles because the guards refused to take him off because they didn't get they couldn't get in contact with their superior officer and weren't given any commands to do so. So she delivered the baby despite the doctor saying that she needed those shackles off of her, the 4-point restraints. So that was a very touching testimony. And I stood up, in support of the bill and, shared my piece. And I was a little nervous because I'd never been in the Virginia's General Assembly before. But, it was something that, I'm glad I did. I definitely seen how the democratic process worked and what we need to do as individuals to gain, political momentum, creating lobbies, creating coalitions of people who, will go out and advocate and fight to get certain things done. So it was a very good learning experience for me, and I thank the Occupy movement for letting me know about, that General Assembly meeting so I could be in attendance and I could, stand in support, of women's rights. I had an opportunity to go to couples nonviolent communication seminars, just learning different ways to communicate with the power structure, different ways to communicate with my colleagues, different ways to communicate with, the people that, I want to help. Also, I've been invited to some potlucks. I went to marches. One of the big marches was the Solidarity March it's the Human Rights Day rally. And, we walked through the city of Richmond, picking up trash and marching and singing. And I really felt like it was a civil rights movement all over again. And I had some signs, and everyone had signs. We were just walking through Richmond. We stopped at a couple of sites. We stopped at the Federal Reserve Building. We stopped at Dominion Power, some banks. And they had different speakers that would speak about, some of the injustices, some of the travesties that these banks and these institutions are committing in the name of business. And it was just a very interesting, enlightening experience. I definitely learned a lot, and I really enjoyed it. Also, I've been able to, like I said, go to some general assemblies and just see how that process works as far as them being able to make decisions. The people that I've met, that were in the movement were very genuine, very warm people, people that were very open-minded, people that were serious about making changes. And it wasn't just a fad, and I don't think the Occupy movement is going away. I think the bond that they built, while occupying the park and just by going to different meetings and stuff is something that you can't, just take away that easy. I'll continue to support them. A lot of my thoughts and a lot of the things that I support and agree with, is in alignment with the movement. So the movement is definitely strong, and I'll definitely be, checking out the meetings, although I'm not sure or not if I'll join. So that's to be seen.